Folks, thank you very much for joining. My name is Andrew Bustamante, and I know it's noon. I know people are hungry. I know you've been sitting here for the last few hours, but listen, you're about to hear something that you don't normally hear. I am a former covert CIA intelligence officer. I am the founder of everydayspy.com, and what I do is I take CIA intelligence skills and I apply them in the everyday world. I do some really cool stuff with these skills. I love sharing them with other folks. I was connected to Jeanette not because I have any experience in the trading world specifically, but because I have been connected with successful traders and I have been able to teach them some of my skills, share my skills with them, and the overlap between how a CIA intelligence officer executes high-risk operations and how it parallels with how traders work every day with risk and managing and working to increase their risk tolerance to maximize their trades every day, the overlap is powerful. So I'm here to talk to you about risk, specifically how to dominate risk and win where others lose. And I'm going to do that by sharing a spy story from my own life and hopefully inject your Saturday afternoon, your 6-hour webinar series with something that's a little different and a little bit more exciting than what many of our other American fellows are doing this Saturday afternoon. So if you're distracted, if you're multitasking, stick with me for the next 60 minutes. I'm going to try to inject a little bit of excitement into the middle of this afternoon. On screen, you'll see everything you need to know about me. Don't visit any of these sites right now. They're just a distraction. Everything is there. If you Google Everyday Spy or if you Google my name, you're going to find me. So you don't have to look for it now. Stick with me on the screen and let's jump into this. I have one very specific mission today, and that's to teach you how to dominate risk. I'm going to do that by walking you through a few critical steps. We're going to talk about a secret truth, a fact that is out there that you simply don't get taught. I'm going to talk to you about the danger of being inside of your comfort zone. We're going to look at the comfort zone and we're going to look at how we make decisions inside our comfort zone by looking at how the mind itself processes a decision. And when you learn that process, you will be shocked because there is a lie that your brain tells you and that you have come to trust over time. And the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you can disrupt the lie that you are telling yourself every day. And it's not because you're bad, it's not because you're uneducated, it's not because you don't know, it's because of the way our mind is wired. When we get there, you'll see how it works and the way that every intelligence operative, the way that every intelligence operative in the world works, whether they're KGB, whether they're Mossad, whether they're CIA, we all learn to rewire our mind so that we stop lying to ourselves in one very specific area. Now, I promised to start with the secret truth, and here it is. Risk is guaranteed in life. Now, some of you might think that's obvious, but here's the thing. Everybody out there is buying something that teaches them how to control risk or manage risk or avoid risk. Coaches are making fortunes trying to tell people that risk is something that can be hemmed in, managed, controlled, avoided. That is a lie. The truth is that you cannot do anything to control risk. It's guaranteed. It is out there. You cannot control it. But what you can do is you can be trained in how to understand risk as a tactical advantage. You can learn how to increase your tolerance for risk, how to predict risk, how to assess risk. You can make risk an ally. As an ally, it is way more powerful than it is as a threat. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I mentioned that my name is Andrew Bustamante and that I'm a former covert CIA intelligence officer. I don't know when the last time was that you had a chance to hear from someone who was former Intel or former CIA. You'll find us on the news, you'll find us in books, you'll find us around in various places. Where I try to differentiate Everyday Spy from everything else is that Everyday Spy is all about bringing control back into your life. control of your money, control of your relationships, control of the world around you, control of the information that you're bombarded with every day. And it's not because you feel like you're out of control. It's not because you are out of control. It's because out there, everything is using some kind of message, some kind of narrative to try to control our actions, to try to make a sale, to try to close a deal, to try to win some kind of negotiation. We can flip that on its head, and that's what Everyday Spy is there to do, to make it so that you win every negotiation, so that you win when you choose to make a sale, not so that you're sold on something that someone else is trying to pitch you. To give you an example of how Everyday Spy works, I want to take you on a journey with me right now. I want to take you back in time and across the world to 2010, to a country in Southeast Asia. I am not allowed to talk in specifics about my operational background. It continues to be classified to this day. But what I can do is share in generalities what I went through. And I want to share some of those generalities with you because they underscore the point in how we dominate risk. So you and I have just been sent to a beautiful tropical Southeast Asian country. Now, it is a third world country, but it is very well taken care of. So you will enjoy being here. And the reason that you and I are on the ground is because there is a high risk, high value foreigner who's coming into the country specifically to meet with a CIA intelligence officer to sell their secrets, to become a trader against their country. This is what we live for. We live to recruit assets, steal secrets, and keep Americans safe. And when we get a chance to forward deploy to some gorgeous country in Southeast Asia to do it, we're going to say yes. That is a risk we are absolutely willing to take because there is something that is going to come out of this, and that something is going to save lives. But this particular trip is different because instead of going out there to meet the asset or going out there to follow, also known as surveil the asset, our goal is to actually perform an operation called counter surveillance. Now, counter surveillance is when you follow the target with an eye specifically to see if the target is being followed by someone else. It's a little bit more advanced than just your general Hollywood surveillance platform where you've got some guy in a Buick who's smoking a cigarette and following 2 car lengths behind somebody else, right? We're actually following someone to see if they're being followed by someone else, always with the end goal being to protect Americans and protect CIA resources. So here we are. We are on a counter surveillance operation. We know that our target is going to disembark from an airplane at a specific place at a specific time, and we are there to watch them disembark. And they don't know that we're there, but we know who they are, what they look like, and we know exactly where they will ultimately go to meet with a CIA field officer and share their secrets. The only thing that stands between this target and the true identity of that CIA intelligence officer they're going to meet is you and I. And we will be counter-surveilling them and watching them every step of the way to see if they are in fact genuinely there to share information or if they are there to pose some kind of a risk to our covert intelligence officer. Now we're going to start with the comfort zone. There is something that I am looking for when I see this scenario play out. There is something that will make me very comfortable. I am looking for someone to come off the plane, to act very discreetly, to look the way I expect them to look in a picture. I expect them to be coming off of this plane and into this beautiful foreign country as if they are prepared to enjoy the locale itself. This high-value target is coming out of a very dangerous place. So it's like going on vacation times 10 when they get off of this plane. They are no longer in their horrible country where they live. They are no longer in constant danger. They are no longer at threat for losing their life. They are in paradise. They should behave like they're in paradise. This is what I'm looking for. This is the comfort zone. But instead, what comes off the plane that day is an angry, grouchy, rude foreigner who is wearing a sock hat, a heavy winter jacket, sweatpants, and winter boots. This is not what I was expecting. This is not giving me a warm fuzzy in my heart to see this person all bundled up and clearly agitated coming off of a plane and into a tropical climate where they're supposed to be meeting someone I'm supposed to keep safe. I am outside of my comfort zone at this moment. But what is a comfort zone? You see, comfort is defined as a state where you are free from pain, where you are alleviated of any negative feelings that you might have. That's the definition of comfort. What's interesting is that definition doesn't talk about what it is. Instead, it defines comfort as something that is missing. And specifically, what's missing is negative feelings. That means that your comfort zone is actually defined by your tolerance for discomfort. If one person feels like something is uncomfortable and another person feels like the exact same thing is not comfortable, then they have two different comfort zones. It's completely subjective. It's not based on an objective fact. And because it's not based on something tangible, something physical or objective, that means that comfort zones can be changed. They can be shaped over time. They're like exercise. And like exercise, your comfort zone when you trade can be changed. It can be evolved. And growth starts where the discomfort starts. So as long as you're inside your comfort zone, you're inside the same space that you're always in, and you're never going to grow. The only way to grow is to get right outside of your comfort zone, to start increasing your tolerance for discomfort. And there's a reason that I encourage you to do that. And the reason is because when you work in the field, you come to understand that comfort equals danger. Comfort equals danger. It's the complete antithesis to what the rest of the world tells you. We try to tell you that comfort equals safety. Comfort equals quality. Comfort is good. That is wrong. Comfort equals danger. And the reason is because comfort breeds delayed reaction times. It breeds complacency. It breeds apathy. You know I'm right because you have seen it happen to you. You've seen it happen to others. People get comfortable and they get fat, and they get lazy, and they get unhealthy. Comfort does terrible things to us. It does terrible things to the body. It does terrible things to the mind. It does terrible things to operations. Your daily trading is your operation. My daily operation was covert operations in the field. And what you and I both have in common is a history of high performance. And high performance requires constant evolution, constant growth. So when you feel comfortable, that is the first sign that you're doing something wrong. To give specific trading examples, consider what happened during the tech boom. Lots of people were comfortable trading in their little world. And then this tech boom came. And the question they asked themselves was, do I trade, do I invest in this boom, or do I avoid it? The people who traded stepped outside of their comfort zone. The evolution of cryptocurrency offers multiple touch points where you can evolve your trading if you're willing to go outside of your comfort zone. If you're willing to tolerate the discomfort to expand and evolve your comfort zone. The same thing happened again with the rollout of legal marijuana. There was a factor of discomfort in trading that held some people back. But the people who won biggest were the people who faced the discomfort. Early movers win because they move outside of their comfort zone. It's factual in trading. It's factual in covert operations. It's factual in military operations. It's factual in business. The comfort zone is a dangerous place. It is not a safe place. So now that we know this, now that we have unveiled this fact for what it is, we have an important decision to make. And you and I in Southeast Asia, as we watch this high-value target step off the plane, we also have a decision that we need to make. We are going to counter-surveil this target. for a set period of time. We're going to watch them go through their life as in the lead up to their scheduled time to meet with a CIA covert intelligence officer. We're going to track them and tail them. And at the moment where the meeting is supposed to happen, we have to make a go, no-go call to actually put the officer in front of that asset. If we think that the person has malicious intent, that they're strapped with a bomb, that they're leading an assassin to the meeting spot, if we think anything nefarious is going on, we have to call no-go. But if we think that there's a chance that this is a legitimate meeting, that this is a high-risk, high-value target who legitimately wants to cooperate with the U.S. government, then we have to call a go. We're going to collect information as we go through this counter-surveillance operation, but ultimately what we're going to have to do is make a decision. And already we are outside of our comfort zone. So as we follow this person, here's what we see. Here's what we witness. Here's what I witnessed in that tropical environment in 2010. I saw somebody who was supposed to be discreet and quiet and blend in with their surroundings. I saw them being openly hostile to Native people. I saw them being agitated when they walked into shops. I saw them storming off. I even saw them either accidentally or intentionally try to shoplift from a small pharmacy. And they only paid when the owner of that pharmacy chased them out of the store and demanded that they come back inside. None of this behavior was suggesting to me that this person was taking the operation seriously. In addition to the way that they were dressed, and they weren't shedding layers, they were not undressing to meet the heat of the day. They remained bundled up as they took a cab, as they took the subway, as they walked the streets, as we went from the airport to the meeting point for that clandestine meeting. My little checklist of things that would make me comfortable was continuing to not be met. And I recognize that this is not going to be easy. This is a dangerous, scary scenario. I don't have all the information. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is that this individual is not behaving the way that I would have expected them to behave to carry out a successful intelligence operation. Something was happening to me as I watched this play out, as I realized that I had a decision that I was going to have to make. The anatomy of that decision is laid out in these next series of slides. You see, any given day, the average adult will make 35,000 decisions. These are front brain decisions, folks. You and I will make 35,000 decisions, approximately, each day. Because you are trading, you're making quite a few more decisions than this, because we're talking about the average person who goes to a 9-to-5 job, who comes back after their job, who all day long is told what to do. And then when they come home, if they're married like me, they might still be told what to do. But either way, they still have 35,000 independent front mind decisions, conscious mind decisions. These aren't decisions about how fast your heart beats or when to breathe. These aren't decisions about, which direction to move your head if you have an itch. These are conscious decisions. What you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, which direction you're going to walk, when you're going to use the restroom, what shows you're going to watch. 35,000 decisions happen every day for us. And each decision follows the same systematic process inside of a functioning mind. You see, your brain is broken into two hemispheres. You have a left brain and a right brain. Your left brain is where all of your logic resides, and your right brain is where all of your emotion resides. In any given decision, both halves of your brain work together. Consider a sentence, I am hungry. If someone tells you, I am hungry, your left brain actually picks up on the language that they are using itself. Your right brain, the right side of your brain, will give context and comparison to that information, to that language itself. And then working together, your left brain and your right brain will create a conclusion. And that conclusion will result in a behavior or some next step, or it will make an assessment. This person telling me they're hungry is a child and doesn't understand what hunger is, or this person telling me they're hungry is always hungry. That's how your mind works. It can make a decision extremely well when it uses both sides of the brain. Here's what it looks like in terms of anatomy, and I don't want to bore you with this, but if you really get into the anatomy of it, then I wanted to make sure I shared it. Basically, everything starts in the lower left-hand corner with some sort of external input. These are your five senses. Information from one of or multiple of your five senses will go into your brain, and it will follow your left brain and your right brain in tandem. Your left brain is the logical brain. The right brain is the emotional brain. So consider the top flow your logic, the lower flow is your emotion. All of these pieces of your brain work together at the same time to spit something out into your hypothalamus that is ultimately a decision, a reaction, a series of actions that your body takes. When your left brain and your right brain work together, it makes extremely effective decisions. And it almost always works together. When you're angry, when you're sad, when you're happy, your brain works extremely well. But there is one scenario where the entire systematic process of decision-making changes. And that scenario is when you face fear. Fear completely changes the anatomy of a decision. And if you recall what I just said I was feeling that day in 2010, I said I was scared. I was feeling fear. Fear for my fellow intelligence officer who was going to meet with this asset if I said go. And fear for whatever this individual was planning or plotting if they were plotting something at all. Fear is the lie that we all have come to trust. When we feel fear, our body reacts, and we are conditioned over time to trust how our body reacts. But the way that we react is actually not in our best interest, because fear distorts your body's decision-making process. You have an extremely effective brain. It works extremely well. It needs to flow the way that it normally flows. But when fear is introduced, it distorts your decision-making process. Fear of danger, fear of harm, fear of loss. When you consider it all together, does any of this sound familiar? This is exactly the definition of risk. Risk is a situation that involves exposure to some kind of danger. The exposure of someone or of something, like your money, like your ego, like your family. When something is exposed to danger, harm, or loss, we feel risk. Money is such a powerful object that we often see it as highly valued, and we fear exposing it to harm, loss, or the danger of anything unpredictable. Risk becomes fear. Fear and risk are interchangeable words. So when our mind is introduced to risk, the risk distorts our decision-making process. What happens inside your mind anatomically is that your right brain, the emotional brain, completely overruns the left brain. All of your reasoning is shut off and your emotion takes over. This is what they call fight or flight response. It's really easy to talk about fight or flight when you think of it in terms of physical peril, when you're faced by a charging bull or when you're eye to eye with a man with a machine gun. That makes sense. But fight or flight kicks in no matter what the risk or fear scenario might be. If you're afraid of being embarrassed, if you're afraid of being humiliated, if you feel that you are at risk for losing money on a car negotiation, you will kick into fight or flight. It's a hardwired mental process that is originally designed to keep us from physical peril. What we end up doing is standing in our own way in any situation where we see risk or fear. This is what happens inside your brain. The red path now is what happens when risk and fear are involved. Do you see how the logical flow of thought is completely shut down? And it's shut down for a reason. Your body wants to make a faster decision because it wants to get itself out of a perilous scenario, so it relies exclusively on your emotional brain. It cuts the entire process in half, and all of a sudden, your five senses lead to a decision in half the time using half your brain. That's why so many people make bad decisions when they feel risk or when they feel fear. They lose opportunities. They make mistakes. It's because they are shutting down half of their brain. And it's not that they're choosing to shut it down. It's that the brain is wired and over time conditioned to stop working. There's good reason for this. In early mankind, 99.9% of our decisions related to our immediate survival. It was no kidding, how are we going to handle starving to death? Where can we find clean water? Is that saber-toothed tiger going to eat me? When you have to face immediate survival, you need to have a fear response like that. But we don't live in ancient days. We live in modern mankind, and we have evolved so quickly with the tools and with our thought processes and with our capabilities. Our minds have not evolved at the same rate. So now 99.9% of our decisions relate to future objectives, to goals, aspirations, ambitions. And when you're trying to think 5 years in the future, but something is scaring you this moment, then when fight or flight kicks in, that fight or flight is inherently detrimental, inefficient, and disruptive to your 5-year goal. You are being derailed from your long-term objective because your mind is reacting as if it is faced with imminent physical peril. Two completely different ways of your mind working in the same situation. And people don't recognize it. That's why they are sold on this idea that they can manage risk or control risk, because they want to find some way of taking control of the threat itself when we can't. All we can do is understand it, recognize it, and equip ourselves to overcome it, to be prepared for the way it's going to make us feel, to dominate that risk. Now, popular media has kind of caught on to this, right? Yoda taught us a long time ago that fear is the path to the dark side. We've seen the Skywalker clan get broken in half because of how they handle things like fear. And as much as it's funny, as much as it's popular, as much as it's fodder for movies and for cinema and for books, it's also factual if we are willing to recognize it and approach it as fact. And there is a way to fight the dark side. We fight it by disrupting the pattern itself, disrupting the fear pattern that hijacks our minds. Now in 2010, as you and I follow this suspicious, indiscreet, perilous, high-value, high-risk target to the final meeting place where we have to call a go or no-go decision, we are feeling fear. We're feeling fear because we don't know what's happening. But the good news is that we have a high tolerance for risk, and that what we are seeing is something that we have control over, because we are the ones that decide whether or not our fellow covert intelligence officer shows up or whether they just drive on by and never sit with this asset. But we have to make the decision. We have to disrupt the fear pattern in our brain in order to make the right decision, because there's a reason that this person is important enough that CIA is willing not just to risk the officer's life who's meeting with them, but willing to risk my life too. Because if this guy is strapped with a bomb, I'm not walking away from this meeting any better than the other officer. And anybody else in this public square that we're meeting with, everybody will be lost. If there is some sort of team tailing the asset with assassination or with some sort of mass attack on their mind, no one is getting out of there well. But we're in this together. We have to make a decision. We are in a high-risk scenario. We know it. We knew it going in, and we know it now. So how do we face the fear that's trying to hijack our mind? We face it by disrupting the pattern. Risk drives a response. We call it a risk response or a fear response. But it's important to recognize that that response is predictable. That outline I showed you, where you saw how the anatomy of the thought process, the anatomy of the decision flowed only through the red blocks, that is a predictable process. Every human being in every culture, every language, every background, we all have that same fear response. It is predictable. And because it's predictable, that means it can be controlled. But you have to know how to control it, and you have to know how to recognize it. And the way that you get to the place where you can control the pattern enough to disrupt it is through education, training, and experience. Now, the education piece is easiest, right? What education does, these green blocks are, again, a portion of how your mind works. That external sensory input comes into your brain and goes into a part of your brain that makes a decision. Education sensitizes the brain to every possible sensory input. So if you consider, if you go on hikes, or if you've been on a hike with children, or if you've even watched a show or heard somebody tell a story about a hike, when you just go walk in the woods and you don't know what to expect, anything might surprise you. The rustling of leaves could surprise you. A deer jumping across the trail could surprise you. If you come in contact with a rattlesnake, it'll scare you to death. But if you just take the time to educate yourself on the wildlife in the woods before you go on that same hike, a 15-minute browse through Wikipedia, all of a sudden your entire response changes because you have sensitized your brain, specifically a part of your brain called the amygdala. You've sensitized it for what's about to happen. Imagine if you sensitized your mind to an area of trading before you started trading there. If you sensitized your mind to a company or to a business or to a stock index number before you started trading it. Most of you probably do. When you sensitize your mind, you immediately start to cut back on the reaction, on the fear reaction or the risk reaction that happens in your brain. The second part of disrupting the pattern is training. Training is important because training actually increases the efficiency of the logical side of your brain. Now, when you're faced with fear or when you're faced with risk, remember your emotional brain takes over. It takes over because it's extremely efficient in that scenario. Logic takes time. Reasoning takes time. When you build a process that trains your brain to react to fear and react to doubt and risk, what you actually do is increase the efficiency on the logical side of your brain. So now, even though your emotional brain still works at full tilt, your logical side, your reasoning side can keep up. That enables the full brain to assess and respond to the situation like it's supposed to. There are droves of people out there who are educating themselves by reading things online. And I'll be honest, most people are reading things that aren't even factually true. They're reading things that feed into their fear instead of reading things that educate them and sensitize them against the fear. But almost nobody moves on to the second step of disrupting the pattern. Almost nobody goes into a mode of training where they start to take that education and apply it in a systematic way that increases the efficiency in their thinking process. Everyday Spy, my business, exists because there has never been a former CIA intelligence officer who has tried to train people in how to master their mind. I don't know why nobody else ever did it. I have no idea why I'm the first. I have no idea why the idea is revolutionary, because it's so basic, it's so simple. But we exist and we are succeeding because nobody is filling this gap. Training is a key part to disrupting the pattern of having other people control your life and taking control of your own life. So that's what we do. We focus on training. The final step to disrupting the pattern is experience. You have to build experience. When you think something is scary, like jumping off of a 10-meter diving board, and then you just do it, and you survive the fall, and you survive the splash, and you swim back to the wall of the pool, you get back on the diving board and you do it again. And after the third or fourth time, all of a sudden you have all the experience you need that the fear isn't there anymore. The same thing happened the first time you rode a bike. The same thing happened the first time you drove a car. It's scary at first, but the more experience you build, what actually happens is that you recondition your mind to respond to the risk using reasoning rather than emotions. That's why when you drive today, you're not afraid of anything. Some of you probably should be a little bit more afraid when you drive. But that's what happens. Your mind has been reconditioned. That reconditioning process that makes you a confident driver, that makes you a confident swimmer, that makes you a confident bicycle rider, that response can be trained and then flipped into experience that makes it so that you no longer get hijacked, so that your brain works the way that this brain works on the screen. External sensory inputs go into your brain, and all of a sudden your logic takes over. Your emotion is still present, but it's not hijacking your mind. Your mind is working the way it's supposed to work. How much more superior are your decisions going to be than your competitors' decisions when you're using logic and reasoning, when you're in control instead of your emotions being in control? And you can see how this applies not just to your trading world, but to every relationship that you have, to your career, to anything that you're doing at work, to your relationship with your children. Every time you go to buy a car, every time you go to buy a house, every time you go to sell something on Facebook Marketplace or eBay, everybody's coming into things emotionally charged. You will be logically prepared to disrupt the pattern and not fear or risk what you could win. Elite operators constantly educate and train to build up their experience disrupting the fear pattern. Everybody knows about the red team, blue team exercises and military exercises that our U.S. Armed Forces go through. Secret Service actually goes through something called live fire drills. This is placed in this training. Secret Service officers actually get shot because they need to know what it feels like to jump in front of a bullet for the president. So they go through these live fire drills. They're shot with rubber bullets as they jump in front of their protective target. That experience disarms their fear response and reconditions their brain so that they no longer have an emotional hijacking when a real threat faces the president. CIA does the exact same thing with real-time operational scenarios. Everyday Spy is hosting an operational scenario right now that's available to the public called Operation Real Time. The whole reason that we're hosting this is because I want everybody out there to understand exactly how you can disrupt the pattern of thinking and take control in your life. If you get a chance to look up Operation Real Time, you'll see it. You'll see it on every social media platform. You'll find it throughout Reddit. You'll find it all over the place as people learn how to apply these concepts into their everyday life. If you can disrupt the pattern, the fear pattern, the risk pattern, then you will overcome the fear. If you overcome the fear, then you dominate the risk. And if you can dominate the risk, you have won the war. In 2010, looking at my one-way pager, I had to send a message, and that message was one of 3 words: go or no go. It was the only decision I had to make. It was the whole reason I was in the country. It was what 6 hours of following this angry, scary, worrisome target through the streets of a tropical paradise. That's why I was there. I had to make a decision. My emotional mind was racing. I didn't know what was going on. It was outside of logic. It was outside of reason. It was outside of my area of comfort. But I was able to recognize that I was being hijacked. I was able to recognize that my emotional mind was taking over my logical mind. And that recognition that came from training and education and experience allowed me to look at the facts objectively. There was information that this person was willing to risk their life to share. The security of American lives rested on my shoulders and the shoulders of the person who was supposed to meet with this asset. And while they were surly and angry, and while it was very suspicious, and while it didn't make sense the way that they were going through their day, I couldn't objectively define that they were a risk. I could only objectively define that they were kind of a jerk and they were overdressed. So I typed go into my one-way pager. and the meeting moved forward. I hope that this overview shows you how your mind can stand in the way of your own success. Your success in trading, but also your success in multiple aspects of your everyday life. You can reprogram yourself, reprogram your mind to look at fear and risk as advantages instead of as enemies, instead of as threats. I am here to help you do that. Everyday Spy is there to help you do that. And I'm hosting a live interactive class that will show you exactly how elite operators not just dominate risk, but leverage risk and turn it into an advantage in everyday life. It is a simple step-by-step process that few understand and even fewer apply. And when I teach it to you, when I take you from education through training and in this webinar through experience, you will know exactly how to take control in any everyday scenario. The class is called Control, the art of leveraging risk to dominate any situation. I recognize that what I'm talking about is complicated. I recognize that what I'm talking about is scary and it threatens the way that most of us look at the world. And I'm not trying to sell this to everybody. What I'm trying to do is build a community of people who believe that they can shape the world like I know I can shape the world. So I'm limiting the audience to 25 people. I want you to come with me if you want to take control, but the decision is yours. We will, in this class, eliminate fear-based decisions. They will not come back again. You will know how to recognize them. You already know the impact of fear. It's time to eliminate them from your daily life. Whether you're investing and trading, whether you're negotiating salaries, whether you're buying a house, we can get rid of the fear-based decisions. And we can teach you how to predict other human behaviors who are still working inside of fear-based decisions. Whether they're salespeople, whether they're people at work, whether they're people in your house, whether you're buying a house or buying a car, whatever you're trying to do going on vacation, we can get you to predict human behavior. I can even help you learn how to get your wife to take out the trash. I can't actually help you with that. I've tried to help people with that. I've tried to help myself with that, and it hasn't worked out yet. And I think it's because the predictable human behavior is that my wife will get angry and I'll end up taking out the trash. But either way, I want you to find your way to everydayspy.com/go. Sign up for the class. I have 25 seats for May 22nd at noon in a live webinar. You'll be there to get the experience, the training, and the education I have to share. It's a very small group of people. It's a small group of people because I want us to have a candid, honest conversation that moves us forward. If you can sign up today, I also want to send you a copy of my book. I want to extend to you early adopter benefits. My business, Everyday Spy, is less than a year old. And at less than a year old, we've made major newspapers. We've been highlighted in the press. We've been featured in social media. We have revs. We have generated revenue that I was expecting to generate in 5 years inside less than 1 year. And it's because people understand the value of what we're teaching. I also want to give you a 1-year subscription to my Everyday Spy training letter, a training letter that will keep you tested and keep you sharp each week as we move forward. And then finally, I want to invite you into my summer huddle calls over the summer, where we meet monthly to talk about what we're trying to build, what business you're in, what life you're trying to lead, whether you're going on vacation, whether you're buying a car, whether you're buying a house, or whether you just want to ask questions about espionage. My summer huddle calls are a chance for our community to come together and drink from a common pond where we recognize that we are in control and everybody else out there is still searching for water. Everydayspy.com/go. Come join me and 24 other people for the art of leveraging risk. If you don't like what I teach you, if I don't teach you something new, send me an email and I will refund your money. The class is $97. I'm not asking for a lot of money because I don't need you to spend a lot of money, but I do need you to take control. The future that I believe I want to leave behind for my children is a future where they make their own decisions. And that future is only going to be built by people like you and I making our own decisions first. $97 at everydayspy.com/go. Come take control. And if I don't teach you how to do it, send me an email and you will get your $97 back. I have that much faith in my product, that much faith in the knowledge that was imparted to me by CIA and the knowledge that I am excited to impart to you. Now, to end our story, we just typed in go into that pager. The meeting was a go. The asset sat down at a coffee shop across the table from our covert intelligence officer. And within a few minutes, it became extremely clear exactly why they were behaving the way that they were behaving. You see, our asset had picked up the flu in their hovel of a home in that terrible country that they were from. And through the sickness, through the illness, they had to find a way to travel on a plane for 14 hours to get to paradise. They had to go to the pharmacy to try to find something that was going to settle their stomach. They were freezing cold with a skyrocketing fever, so they were bundled in a jacket and boots and sweatpants. They didn't want to talk to anybody. They just wanted to get the meeting over with. That's why they were showing the behavior they were showing. That's why they looked surly and angry. That's what we saw during our surveillance route. Had we called the meeting off, everything would have been a waste. We wouldn't have gotten the information that we needed to get. The person wouldn't have met with an intelligence officer. The sacrifice they made would have felt like it was for nothing. But instead, we got critical intelligence that kept Americans safe. And about 15 minutes into the meeting, that fluish asset threw up all over the covert intelligence officer. It was a terrible and hilarious thing to watch. But because of the experience that they shared that day, that relationship was built stronger than ever before. That case, that high-risk, high-value target, and that very brave intelligence officer who met with them after receiving a message on a pager that just said go, those two went into extremely sensitive channels shortly after I met or after I had that operation. I don't know where they are today. I don't know if they're still meeting. I don't know if information is still being shared, but I am extremely proud of the training that I received that allowed me on that day to make the decision that kept people safe, to make the decision that dominated the risk that I felt. And I want you to have that feeling too. Join me at Control, The Art of Leveraging Risk, on May 22nd at noon, and we'll do the same thing for you. Jeanette, I am happy to take questions. I know that you've been running a tight ship, so you tell me what you want to do, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead. There's a handful of them in there. Can you see them?
I sure can. Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll jump to the top. I see folks have been putting in information for a while, so I'll just kind of skim through and see what I can answer. I hope that I answer the question about what happened. I'm sorry for kind of teasing it out throughout the entire meeting. A lot of awesome email addresses. Thank you very much, folks, for sending that. Oh, if there's an echo, I'm sorry about that, Oswald. I was not aware. I will see if I can fix that next time. Awesome. Looks like we have some people who have come back a second time and maybe even like the presentation better than the first time. Still more email addresses. Let me scroll down here to a question. I have a lot of folks ready to buy. That's really exciting, and a lot of awesome yeses. Find your way to everydayspy.com. Go sign up. Let's bring you into the ecosystem now. I don't want you to lose your seat waiting, so jump in there, please. Let's see who else we have for questions. There we go. Let's see.
One question I've seen several times is they want to join the class, but they can't be there on the 22nd at noon. Are you going to give them a copy of it, or how's it going to work for people that buy it that can't physically be there?
Yep. Go ahead and buy. We will record the class. We will send it to you along with the bonus package. That's absolutely acceptable. And then you'll be able to come into our ecosystem. And as an early adopter, one of those bonus features was that you would be included as an early adopter into the program. That's going to give you kind of a highway to getting to me with any questions that you have in the future via email and social media through dedicated servers. So absolutely sign up. We will make sure that we get you the recorded version of that webinar and keep you on that early adopter list moving forward.
How long is the class typically?
I try to shoot for about 45 to 60 minutes, just like we did today, and then it's an open-ended question and answer period. So any questions that we have at the end, then we go through it right there on the class. And then, of course, we can come back to it during any of the summer huddle calls as well.
All right, perfect. Looks like, yeah, these are all people saying, great job, great presentation.
Thank you, folks.
Okay, so, this is a good question, though. Will your class help somebody that has a what's the use in doing it attitude? What's
Absolutely.
The use?
Yeah. See, when you're asking what's the use in doing it, that is an attitude that kind of shows that you've been overrun by your emotional brain. Logically, you know that there is a use, but your emotional brain has taken over so much that you're doubting that there's any use at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewire that so that you can at least answer your own question. What's the use? Oh, well, it's beneficial because of X, Y, and Z, and come to a complete decision. Use the full force of your brain to close that gap and answer the question that you need to succeed. That's what it's all about. That's the control we're looking for.
All right. And how often do you do these classes?
We try to host one of these at least once a month, if not more than that. Right now, we're still kind of feeling out the demand and what people are interested in, how we can best meet their needs. So you might see them increase in the future, but you'll also see that we have multiple types of webinar content that's coming out. This is about risk specifically, but we'll have more about persuasion, more about negotiation, more about relationship management as we move forward through the curriculum that I was taught at CIA.
All right, awesome. Okay. All right, well, I think we've cleared the questions now, and so I'm going to go ahead and just dismiss you as a panelist. Everybody, everydayspy.com/go. I've posted it for y'all in the chat box and in the Q&A box. Andrew, thank you for spending this hour with us, and always interesting to hear this story play out. I mean, I've only heard it a couple times, but for me, to have somebody in here that really like lived and breathed that, and then to take that into your everyday life is really compelling. That whole, I mean, I don't understand why you can't get your wife to come vacuum. But when you first said that, I was like, oh wait, does that mean I can get? Is he going to teach me to make my children vacuum without? And then you're like, ha, just kidding. That didn't really happen. That's no good. That's not going to help me today. All right. Okay. I'm gonna. Oh, somebody wants to know, could this help a narcissist? I know a few.
It depends on where the narcissism is kicking in, but I'm sure that we can work through it.
Okay,
Jeanette, thank you very much for your time, ma'am.